Well, hey everybody, welcome back. Today, we're going to be doing some more Warhammer. You're going to hear in another couple of videos that I already have in production. It's been a while since we did Warhammer, so I'm never sure which video you're going to see first as I'm doing them. But I'm getting the Warhammer feel back as I see more videos about 10th edition, and I miss, mainly more than I miss playing, I miss building. And I'm really excited that we've got some new models. I'm not so excited about the new Cadian actual infantry guys. I miss my old big head guys, but some of the new models are really great. Some of the repackaging of old models is really great, like the new Leman Russ kit, where you have the options to build the Demolisher or the regular battle tank in one kit, and if you work smart with either some 3D printing or some bit sourcing, you can basically build two tanks out of that one kit. And with the release of the all-new, all-plastic Malcador and the plastic solar auxiliary, Leman Russ, I'm so excited because I have built both of them in resin. The Leman Russ was part resin, part plastic, but the Malcador has been all resin, and I built it before. I built a few of them. And I'm just really excited to get my hands on an all-plastic kit. And so there's a video where I did the full build-up with complete magnetization and showing exactly the work to do it. But I figured I'd release a shorter video just where I'll talk through how I magnetized basically every weapon option, except the Pinto mount. But I'll tell you why I didn't do that. But I'll talk you through how you can easily magnetize that as well. And I have always, since my very early days playing, have been a big fan of learning how to magnetize stuff so that you have as many options as possible in your list and on the tabletop. And I basically figured this one out as I went. It's not hard. It's not hard at all to do the magnetization on this kit so that you have basically every single option in one kit. I know Games Workshop would prefer that you built one option and then bought another kit, but let's get serious. These things are only getting more and more expensive practically every day. And I think this is an expensive kit enough as it is. So let's talk about what you're going to need to do this. There are people that have never tried to magnetize their kits that have played for years. There are brand new players who have never done this before. So you're only going to need a few different sizes of magnets to pull this off. Now, I'm going to drop a link in the video description to a pretty good assortment of magnets from Amazon. It's not very expensive. You get a whole bunch, and I've used this already on at least 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be the 5th model that I'm using them on. So you see a bunch in my hand, but there were at least two or three times as many magnets as you see here. I think it was $13 or $14 for the whole thing. So with this little assortment that I picked out personally because I wanted to use it, you get every single size you might need, minus maybe one size for something really small like the Pinto mount here. You get a whole lot of them, and it's a really good price. So I don't know, I've been very happy with it. Like I said, I'm gonna throw the link in. It's an easy way to get just about everything you need. Looking at the Malcador of all these different sizes, there's only 4 that I actually used to do this. Again, there's one I wish I had to do the Pinto mount, which I don't have, but we'll talk about that. So the sizes that actually go into this are 3mm, 4mm, 6mm, and 9mm. Those are the ones you need to do it the way I did it. You don't necessarily have to do the way I did it, but I think this works out pretty well. If you want to do the Pinto mount, you will also need a 2mm, which I don't have, or a 1mm. We'll talk about that again as we get there. So we talked about magnets that we're going to need. Some tools that very commonly you'll need when you're doing your magnetizing. Obviously, you'll need a drill. I think this is pretty common in model building and Warhammer. Some people call it a hand drill, some people call it a pin vise. Again, you can get this very cheaply on Amazon or most hobby supply places. Usually they come with a little set of drill bits. A lot of times they just throw them in a bag though, and it's hard for you to figure out exactly what size everything is. This is a 3mm bit, just for size reference. You can get a box of bits. Everything I buy most of my supplies on Amazon. I don't have a brick and mortar store anywhere near me that I wouldn't have to drive over an hour to get to. So this is a pretty good set. It comes with a lot of different sizes. It goes up to 3mm. It actually goes 3.2 millimeter, but all the way down to a point. I can't even read that anymore. 0.4 and up. So basically, if you're doing magnetizing, it will have all the millimeters you need in general. And then when we need to go a little bit bigger, this is a diamond burr set. This will fit into your pin vise. It'll also fit into a Dremel. I try not to use the Dremel because it's just so easy to go too far. You know, when you do it by hand, let's face it, you can always take off more plastic, but once you've taken off too much, there's nothing you can do. This is a great one for opening up the hole a little bit. So once we go 3mm, this is really good for opening up the hole a little bit more as far as you need, and then we use one of these to even it out. This is really good for that, for the magnet itself. So again, very, very inexpensive on Amazon, and you get 3 or 4 complete sets of the bits. So you get, like, obviously not all of them are in here because I have them, you know, at different areas for working, but you get at least 2 sets of each bit, and I think 3 overall. And anyway, you get different shapes for working on stuff. So tools are important. Just using your X-Acto knife as a drill is not a great plan. You're going to break the tips. You're going to have little pieces of metal around, and it's going to be kind of a sloppy job. I do use the X-Acto to start a hole as just a little starter hole, so I can get a more exact drill. But anyway, so looking at the Malcador itself, we'll talk about putting all the magnets in the order of the build instructions, and that starts us with the Sponsons. The Sponson weapons are the same weapons that would go into the bow weapon plate. They use them for everything. And if you look at what Games Workshop did, they have this little key there that fits into a little rectangular slot on the Sponson and the bow plate there. It makes it a little easier to build. If you're inexperienced, it helps line it up, but it also kind of encourages you to just build as is, and you know, then Games Workshop gets you to buy a new model when you want to, if you want different weapon options. So in order to put this magnet in, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get rid of this little notch, this little tab here that keys it in, and then as neatly as you can clean that out without gouging out plastic. You just want to remove that, and then from there it's pretty easy to find the center and just make a little mark with your knife, and then you can go ahead and you can start drilling into the piece. And you only need to make it as deep as it goes to fit one 3mm magnet in there. And if we take a look, it's not very deep. You can go further. I mean, it's not going to hurt you to go further. What I like to do to place the magnets is I will actually put it on the side of the blade and then use the blade to push it in. And that way, even if the hole is too deep, when the blade hits the surface of the piece, it doesn't go any farther than that. It'll stop there, and it won't be buried within there, even if I made the hole too deep. So that works pretty well. The same thing for the Sponson. It's not an exact hole there, so that's where these diamond bits come in really great, to just slowly start to grind a round hole in the middle of that rectangular slot that comes in it. And then once you've got a round hole to work with, you can start using your drill to make it deep enough to place the magnets in there. Something that you have to worry about with magnets, if you're not familiar with them, you haven't used them before, is polarity. So when you got magnets, they attract to each other on one side, but on the other, they push away. That's grade school magnet stuff. You need to make sure that you are connecting magnets in a way that works. So I usually like to start on one side or the other. So I'll do one side, say the sponson, and then I'll take the magnets, and these don't hit together, they don't connect together with polarity. That would have been disastrous. And I'll just let them hit like that. I'll use my knife to slice one off the top, and now I know that if I insert it into the gun this way, it's guaranteed to connect correctly, and we've got a connection there. And I'll make sure that the polarity is the same for each side. That way, no matter which side I want to attach the gun on, I'm not playing like, oh, this only goes left and this only goes right. That's especially important with this model, since the bow plate also connects to the same guns. So you want to make sure that those all match. And the bow plate is the same method as the sponsons, where it has a little rectangular slot. So you take your burr or whatever tool you're using, you round out that rectangular slot a little bit, and then take your 3mm drill bit, and then you insert a 3mm magnet. Now these can be 3mm, they don't need to be any bigger than that, because they're not holding very much weight on there. They're just holding, you know, basically that, and that works just fine. So that takes care of your sponson weapons, and I haven't gotten around to doing the rest of it, as you saw on that sprue, but that's that. I think maybe the biggest amount of work is going to be in your main gun. So the main gun is a separate assembly. It's two pieces over here, left and right. I will eventually fit in, and then you'll put the roof on. These weapons all have little nubs that fit into little holes on the main gun carriage, and so you would put together one main gun of your three options. You've got a Vanquisher, you've got a battle cannon, you've got dual las cannons, and that's it basically. And if you want another version, you would buy another kit. It's pretty easy to build this, though, to hold all three guns anytime you want. This is what we're going to use our 6mm magnets for after you build your guns. So assemble all of your guns. You, not this guy yet. You're going to assemble all four of your gun pieces. You're going to take your clippers, you're going to snip off those tabs. You're going to either use your knife, or you're going to use a sanding stick, whatever you prefer. You're going to make sure that's flat and level. What I did then, because I had the burrs, was take the burrs and just start to open up those holes. I had the burrs in the pin vise here, and just open them up till they're 6mm, and insert 6mm magnets flush into each side. In fact, they're recessed just slightly in there, because I wanted an easy in and out with the main gun carriage there. What was a little challenge then was, before I put these together, I cut a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you on this. There is, you're not going to be able to see it, and you'll see it in the main build video. There's a little bit of structure behind. There's a circular structure right here. So I removed the rear of that structure a little bit, and I then started to use the burrs again. I just used this burr, which made it really easy. You could do this again with a knife, with an X-Acto, with whatever you had. If you have a 6mm drill bit, you could use that too. And I just started to remove plastic until I had a 6mm hole. I use this to make it nice and even and flat. Again, you want to make sure your magnets are flush with the surface. If there's anything that's standing proud, you're not going to get this to fit correctly in there. They're not going to. When you have your weapons in, and again, we got to check polarity here. Okay, it's not going to. Things are not going to fit correctly, and this main gun carriage is not going to close all the way. It's not going to fit inside this mount. So you really got to be careful that you're making sure all the magnets are flush everywhere it goes. But you put your magnets in. By the way, I should say, magnets don't respond to regular model cement. So some kind of cyanoacrylate or crazy glue, super glue, whatever you want to use. That's why my fingers are covered in crazy glue mistakes right now. You just hold it in there. Again, you can use a blade of your hobby knife to put it in and hold it just until it's in there. I'm not afraid of getting glue on my hands because you can get it off with acetone or just kind of buff it off with a little sanding stick, whatever, but just making sure it's secure in there. And again, checking your polarity. So taking the magnet that's going to go inside, sticking it on there, removing it, and now you know it can go right on the interior and it's going to be correct. So you do that on both sides, and then you can connect your gun carriage piece, and it just inserts, and now you've got a gun that fully traverses, and it elevates. It actually elevates and holds its elevation better than the Games Workshop assembly. I've read online a lot of people have what they call droopy gun syndrome, where it just wants to flop down. But this will hold its elevation and its depression. It moves all around. We can swap that out if we want the battle cannon. Well, again, polarity is a thing. You've got your battle cannon that swaps in and out. For the dual las cannons, it's a little easier because it already, once you cut those nubs off, it gives you some smaller holes. It's a smaller gun. It's a little bit lighter. I used 4mm magnets on this one. I'm thinking I might replace this with, I might take those out and just drill a full 6mm in there. It does flop a little bit. It holds all the way up elevation. Like I said, I originally did this with 4, and it still works and everything, but it doesn't hold as well as I would like. So I might take these out and replace them with more 6mm just to give a better hold. But I mean, for the swappability's sake, you just gotta do this one a little bit differently. I definitely recommend putting the magnets in before you attach your las cannons, because these can get a little fragile as you're holding them. So do your magnetization on it. Make sure you're looking at which end is up, because this is not swappable up or down. And then you've got your... Okay. Next place we look at for magnetizing is going to be the bow gun. There's 2 options here. You have your standard connection for the same guns that would be on the Sponsons, or you have your demolisher cannon. Little trickier here, because the demolisher cannon is basically an empty tube. This one's not so hard. There's plenty of space to drill out and put a 4mm magnet right in here. And it's still, once you do that, it still has its elevation, no problem. I put a 3mm magnet in the back. So when this is recessed, because we put the 3mm magnet in front, the 3mm magnet in back just stands a little bit proud there. I used so we already had a magnet on here. I let this decide the polarity, let the next 3mm magnet hit how it wanted to connect here, and that's how I decided how we were going to insert the magnet here. So it connects, and it still elevates up and down, and then we can connect our weapons, and it works just fine. In order to get the demolisher cannon to work, I had to get a magnet in there and figure out how to hold it in what was just an empty tube. So the real simple solution is really cut off a little piece of sprue, have it fit right in the end, and if you can see, I made sure it fit flush with the ends and edges of the tube here. That takes a little bit of measuring, but it's not so hard. Glued it in. So I had the 6mm magnet inside the tube of the demolisher, and it also connects perfectly. I use the 6 instead of the 4 because this is just a little bit bigger and a little bit heavier, but you still have your up-down elevation, and it holds it nice and tight while you move your tank around the tabletop, and it works just as well. So you have your full weapons array options here. If you are going to magnetize this, your Pinto mount, this is going to be a little harder. This one's going to be real precision work. You can use a 2mm magnet on this, which is going to, I mean, it's gonna basically take up the entire space on the bottom of this mount. You can use a 1mm. It's very light. If you don't mess with it, it's not gonna fall, but you would have to drill a small hole into the roof wherever you wanted it, and you'd have to adjust that. If you're not gonna have the commander holding it, like I chose to have my commander actually holding the gun, then you just put it wherever. If you're going to have the commander holding the handle, because this handle is a separate piece in the commander's hand, and I don't have it here, but the second part of all these Pinto mounted guns comes with a handle. You cut them all off. You don't have to cut them all off, but you just drill a hole into the roof. I would recommend putting at least a 3, if not a 4mm magnet in the roof to really hold on good to the 2 or the 1mm magnet you're going to put on there, and that's how it would hold on. And like I said, when I get the small enough magnets in to do that, I will cut this off real neatly, and I will magnetize all of the options for the Pinto mount weapons, the heavy stubber, the flamer, and the multi-laser, which I put on there. As one last option, I wanted to have the Plow, but I wasn't sure if I always wanted to use the Plow. So I wanted to magnetize that as well. And that fits here. This is another place where I used the 6mm magnets. Now, this is a kind of a rather deep setting to put them in. What I did to make sure that I was going to have it lined up properly was, if you take your 6mm magnets, they actually fit inside this area very nicely. I took 2 rows of 3 6mm magnets. You'll see how the 2 fit in there perfectly side by side. If you take a column of 3, it sticks out just slightly over the edge of this. Working one side at a time, I put a little bit of glue on the top 2 magnets. I let the opposite side sit where it needed to have the proper positioning inside this little recess, held the magnets on, let them glue. When I pulled it off, the top 2 magnets were stuck. Then I swapped it around. Then it was just a case of matching the polarity, and since the magnets fit in there perfectly, there was no need to measure or anything. I just took another set of side-by-side magnets, glued them in the bottom, and now I've got perfectly fitting Plow that I can remove, and those 4 6mm magnets hold it on just perfect, and it fits anytime I want to use the Plow. Very easy to do. So magnetizing your all-plastic Malcador does take just a little bit of work. It's going to add maybe an hour to your total build time if you choose to do it that way. It took me a little longer because I had to mess with it and figure out exactly how to do it, but if you have a pattern to follow and you know how to do it, it won't add more than an hour. And most of that is just spent drilling and widening some holes. You won't have to figure anything out, now that somebody has told you how to do it. It's not rocket science. I'm sure many people have figured this out on their own, but I thought I'd share the method I used because it works pretty well. And by the way, where's my... when you have the magnetized weapons, you can still elevate. You can still move left and right on your sponsons. You can still traverse. They still all work. Just because you don't have one hard plugged in there doesn't mean that you can't make all the things work and position it how you want. So I hope this was helpful or enlightening to 1 or 2 folks out there. Again, I'll have the whole build video where you actually see me do the work and everything, in there coming out shortly. I need to edit and put some voiceover stuff to describe as I'm going. So if you haven't experimented with magnets and stuff on your models, I encourage you to. It's just fun to be able to swap things out and see what you can come up with for it. Definitely give it a try. For everyone out there in YouTube land building your own, keep building and build them well, and I'll see you with some more Warhammer and not Warhammer projects again real soon.